What if I told you that this $170 Death Guard model from Games Workshop
could be replaced with a 3D print that costs a mere 1/5 of the price?
Today we're putting Nurgle's finest to the test.
Plastic versus 3D print.
To see, once and for all, which one actually spreads the most play.
But most importantly, if we're scamming them.
Yes. Quick heads up, there's only 12 more days to grab the Squidmar Ultra Mark II airbrush, the best beginner airbrush I've ever tried. So grab one now while you can, and while you're at it, grab the Dragon as well. It's only 69 bucks. Only 12 more days to grab it at this price. After that, it's gonna be more expensive. More on that later in this video. Now, let's talk about Games Workshop versus 3D prints. Games Workshop makes some of the most iconic miniatures in wargaming history. And Nurgle, in my opinion, is kind of the finest of what Games Workshop do. I feel like every Nurgle model is pretty much amazing.
However, there is today a growing massive wave of independent creators who are sculpting miniatures for home 3D printing.
And I'm kind of excited because today we are going to print some of these, compare them to the original, which in our opinion are some of Games Workshop's best miniatures.
And today I feel like this might be the toughest challenge for the 3D print category because Games Workshop is just quite very good at making these demons.
We are going to test something in pretty much the entire range. Not all models, obviously, but all the way from Plague Bearer, all the way up to Mortarion, the big guy. Heck, even the Great Unclean One.
And today we'll be judging the miniatures on the design, the sculpt quality, and price.
Let's dig into it. Round 1. Mortarion versus Mthulus. Mortarion, Demon Primarch of Nurgle. This is one of my favorites of all time from Games Workshop. It's one of the most dynamic post-sculpt in Warhammer history.
You have this like perfect silhouette and the shape of the miniature is so well made, so the details kinda aren't as intimidating as on other minis.
I do agree with you, also because it's bigger, the details, like they're not quite as small. However, I do think, for example, his big scythe here, it's really nice, but you could also have less and then be able to paint faster. You also have some things around the torso area here that I think is kind of adding maybe a little bit too much extra work, but also all the tiny Nurglings flying around and chains, and it's still one of the best Games Workshop minis ever made. So when it comes to design, where would you place this one?
Considering that we think it's one of the best miniatures from Games Workshop, it probably has to go up a 10 out of 10.
I do agree with you. In terms of design, just the silhouette, the dynamic posing, I think it's a home run. It's a 10 out of 10. But now, sculpting.
In some of the flat areas and some of the clean areas, they could have went for a bit less of textures going on.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the wings, for example, all these tiny holes, all of these makes it that you have to spend so much more time painting.
Yeah, I think as well, for me, like on the shoulder pads, everything is like pre-rusted and pre-textured to like insanity. While I do still think it's an amazing sculpt, I would probably bump the sculpt down to maybe an 8, but with the design being a 10.
Yeah, I can see myself giving it 8 out of 10 on sculpt quality as well.
When it comes to price, this one is a hefty 170 US donkers. I think the price is kind of crazy, to be honest. It is a tough one. I feel like in terms of price, it's like a 4.
For being a Games Workshop mini, I would rather pay $170 for this one than to pay like $120 for a plastic tank. That's just a square box.
No, I do agree with that. Maybe a 5 out of 10. I would have loved if this one was down to like $100. That would have been like a good price.
I think I have to give it like a 5 out of 10 too.
Yeah. But Lucas, in the other corner, we have the 3D printed Mthulus from Mezgike. Prime Lord of the Dredges. Mezgike has his own lore where it's like underwater demons, kind of like water themed as opposed to like only being the sea themed, which I think is kind of cool. Let's bring out the model and give it our grade. Mthulus, Lord of the Dredges. God damn, it feels way bigger.
Yeah, it is slightly bigger. Everything is a bit more inflated.
Yeah.
So the parts themselves are a bit bigger.
When it comes to the design, for being a 3D print, this is kind of what I would be looking at when it's like Games Workshop replacement miniature. It doesn't have wings, it has tentacles. Instead of having the seized part, it mostly has like more squid stuff, and it has these like squid stuff on the face, which I kind of like.
For me, I think it's a bit close because it has like unique parts. Like, yeah, the wings are changed to being tentacles. Yeah. So I would have loved if it had like a different type of armor and like the weaponry wasn't just the same pose.
I see what you mean. I still think in terms of design, I would easily put this at like an 8 out of 10. Because I think it's unique enough for me that I really enjoy the design. Could have been a 10 if it was a little bit more like with the posing and had slightly bigger variation in all the armor parts.
I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10.
Sculpt, though, as you said, it's slightly more inflated, meaning that all the parts are a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Making the scale slightly off the other Warhammer minis.
If you think about it and you maybe use like the rest of the line,
yeah,
then that won't be such a big problem. For me, I think I'd rather focus on the positive side when it comes to the sculpting quality, and that is there's not over the top amount of textured areas.
That is true. I don't know if I'm a massive fan of the belly on him, but it's nice that they've done more of like a Great Unclean One belly, where the like stomach is cut up as opposed to like an armored belly.
I think it's kind of cool that they've included all these mines in the belly.
I do think it has downsides, but I think a lot of them might be just because it's 3D printed. So like how big the chains are, as an example. It's because you don't want them to be too brittle when you 3D print them. So they have to make them a lot bigger. I like the Nurglings, they have like unique style. I think in terms of the sculpting, I think it's an 8 for me. I think it's really good.
I think I just would have loved if some of the parts were a bit neater. I think that some of the stuff could have been slightly less inflated, like the fabrics and stuff. So I think I'm gonna give it like a 7.
When it comes to price though, this one costs $25 on myminifactory and add about 250 grams of resin, so depending on the resin you have, somewhere between $10 and $20. It's a cheap mini. You do have to again consider that you have to actually spend the time printing it, cleaning it, IPA, all of that kind of stuff, and a 3D printer of course. But in terms of price, I think this one as well is kind of a solid, maybe like a 6 out of 10. Kind of expensive for being a 3D printing file, but it's also very high quality.
I kinda think it's a bit too pricey. As soon as you cross that magical barrier of $20 for a 3D print file, I get so turned off. Yeah, I'm giving it a 5 out of 10.
So for the first battle, Mthulus versus Mortarion, we have a clear winner, Lucas, and the winner is
Mortarion.
It's a better mini.
Yeah.
I like the Mezgike one, but Mortarion is just...
I feel
you
like
can't beat it.
No, so I love this, but he should have done more of it. And more of his own thing.
But still amazing figure. Let's move on to the next one. And while we compare these two miniatures for you, let's talk about this week's sponsor, Squarespace. 5 years ago, I built my first website with the help of Squarespace. And it was so freaking easy, I kid you not. I've, known how to do a little bit of designing in Photoshop, but I've always hated programming and known nothing about it. But with Squarespace, not only do they hold my hand with the programming, but also with the layout and design. It is completely free to try to build your own website. If you just follow the link in our video description, you get 30 days to use their system that is now a mix of AI that guides you through designing the website, but also about 2 decades worth of design knowledge and pre-made templates that you can reuse for your purpose. And in my opinion, right now, if you run a business, a side hustle, or maybe a miniature painting service, whatever it may be, just having a social media page is not enough. You need to be able to have your own platform where you show that you are serious and professional, and I think Squarespace is the #1 platform for that. You can host a web shop, you can have a gallery that looks amazing, and you can sell your services easier than ever before. So what are you waiting for? Head to squarespace.com, try to build your own website completely for free, and then when you're ready to launch the website, head to squarespace.com/Squidmar, use the code Squidmar and get 10% off your entire purchase of a website or a domain. Do it now, your business needs it.
So now let's get back to comparing.
The Plague Marines are literally Space Marines from Nurgle. They're pretty cool. How many minis do we have to look at?
One.
Just one? I think the design is great.
It's nothing that blows you out of your mind.
I like that they are a little bit sharper on the angles than Space Marines on like the plates on the legs. I'm not a massive fan of all the extra shapes of the backpack. But for like a unit thing, I do think that this is like a solid 7. It's a really good mini, but it's also kind of just that. It's just like a good mini.
Now this is one of the Kill Team ones. It has a pre-drilled barrel, and I'm gonna let this affect my judgment and give it an 8 out of 10.
What do we think of the sculpt? It is a little bit over-designed as well. As I say, I don't like the backpack, which brings it down to me to like a 7 as well.
I'm not a huge fan of the excessive use of chainmail.
Yeah.
Because it's a pain in the ass to paint element.
I'm kind of okay with that. I think that's fine.
I'm probably gonna give it like a 6. Because I just know like churning out many of these for your army
takes
kind
time.
of sucks.
Especially if you want to make it look good. Maybe you're right. I put it down to 6. So Lucas, pricing 7 minis for $60.
I'm probably gonna give it a 5 because it's the same price as 10 intercessors. I'm even gonna go down to freaking 4. It's too expensive, Games Workshop.
I'm gonna give it 5.5. But let's bring out the Decay Soldiers from Immaterium God Miniatures. This one is cool. It has a cool silhouette. I like it. But in terms of design, it is just so over-designed. I like that the tentacles. I like the tentacles on the back here. I like this crown on the back, but the helmet is not great.
I am a fan of the slight like World of Warcraft rims of the armor. I've always been prone to that.
I'm the opposite. I'm like, I don't like the World of Warcraft trims.
Are you
rims.
stupid?
I am. In terms of design, I think this is the weakest one so far. Unfortunately, I think it's like a 3 for me.
These are modular kits.
That is true.
Which, in the design aspect, I have to say, it means that you can have more of them and have them look
variety,
different.
Yeah, that is
I'm
true.
gonna bump it up to a 5 out of 10.
5 out of 10 for design. I think I'm gonna keep it on a 3 just because I have a hard time with the amount of details. In terms of textures as well, and like sculpting, how is this one gonna be to paint? You're gonna have the worst time of your life. It's just too much stuff.
Yeah.
You look at the axe of this one, it's not greatly designed.
This miniature has literally one flat area, and it's the vial.
And if you look at the kneecap and the helmet, like you have skull and then horns in the skull's face, and then you have details upon details. I think this one, in my book, is like a 2.
I'm gonna give it a 1 out of 10.
Price though, Lucas, it's $8 for 6 different designs, and you can 3D print these however many times you want.
This is the place where fucking 3D printing shines.
And I think this is like a 10 out of 10.
You can have an army that's 4,000 points filled with these minis, and the cost per point is gonna be so low.
It's a freaking 10 out of 10. So Lucas, who is the winner here? In terms of price, it's a no freaking brainer.
Yeah.
Immaterium God fucking slays Games Workshop. But when it comes to the design, this one had a tough time.
Yeah.
And obviously, so everyone knows, this is our personal opinion.
This is everything down to personal taste.
Yeah. Round number 3. Biologus Putrifier versus Addicted Dredger from Mezgike.
The Biologus Putrifier, this mini is one of my favorite minis. It's so good.
It is a beautiful Death Guard mini.
So when it comes to design, I'm gonna let the painting influence a bit because I feel like all these vials are just so nice to paint. Because it's like the more time you spend, the mini is gonna actually look so much better. And the design, the pose, everything, the fly wings.
Yeah. I think in terms of design, this is like a 9 for me.
Yeah, I give it a 10.
I think the only thing that could have made it a little bit better is that it feels a bit static. Imagine if they managed to make it fly like a mosquito as well in some way, so it's like floating forward more. That would have been a 10 for me.
But I mean, it doesn't fly.
No, but what I mean is like, if it was a little bit more gracious, it would have had a 10 for me. When it comes to the sculpt, it is a little bit too detailed.
Yeah.
This will bump down the grade for me. I would put it at like a 7.5.
I'm gonna go even lower. I've painted this mini. Even though I freaking loved the end result, I hated every single part of the process. So I'm gonna give this like a 4 out of 10.
A funny thing here, it is $35. It feels more unique than just like a Plague Bearer or a Death Guard mini. It has more unique elements, which brings it up a little bit. I gave the Poxbringer a 3. I think this one for me is like a 5. It is still just a single mini, but I definitely think it's more worth it than the Poxbringer.
I mean, this is still like for an honest worker, like 2 hours of work to be able to afford this mini.
I don't think that's enough. I think like 3 hours of work after taxes and shit.
Yeah, so I think it's still a bit high, so I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm a Games Workshop whore, what can I say? The Addicted Dredger from Mezgike, Lucas.
Can I change my grade on the previous mini to 9 on the design?
Yeah, sure.
Because I just found out what the true 10 out of 10 looks like.
The Addicted Dredger, Lucas, I think is where Mezgike has hit even more a home run. You can see that it's the same character, but none of it has the same silhouette.
No.
It has enhanced it even more. You still have the vials, but it's tentacles holding them instead of wings. He has the gun in a completely different position.
This is just a new mini.
I think this is just beautiful design. The Nurgling, that is a freaking squid Nurgling, I think is just as beautiful as well. I don't want to give it a 10. I'm gonna give it a 9, but I think it's better than the Biologus Putrifier. I think it's like a 9 plus.
This is a 10 out of 10, but I don't. What are you saying?
When it comes to the sculpting, I think we're kind of up there as well. This one is really, really nicely designed. Prints super well on the 3D printer.
This one barely needs any support.
Which makes it even better to print.
Yeah, there's no unnecessary freaking textures. I feel like everything is just
well balanced.
Yeah, so I'm
really
gonna give this a
balanced.
9 out of 10 on the sculpt.
I think it's a 9 for me as well. When it comes to the price, it is quite pricey. Because once you've printed it, it's $13.50 and you pay like $2 for the print, which is pricey, but it's still 1/3 of the price of the Games Workshop Mini.
Yeah.
Because the Mini is so nice, like I feel like I'd be more willing to pay for it.
If I enjoyed 3D printing,
yeah,
like if I didn't see it as a problem,
yeah,
I would give this
you
like
enjoyed painting on 3D printed dress.
I would probably give it like a 10 out of 10.
This one was in plastic, it would have been like an 11 out of 10.
But now it's a 3D print, so I'm gonna give it like a 7 out of 10. Because it is a fairly good price.
Yeah, I think so too. Obviously the design quality affects how well you appreciate the price. I'm gonna give this a 6, 6.5. Good get in there. Which means the winner, round 3,
Mezgike.
freaking win for the 3D printers. 2 more minis to review. We're going to do the Great Unclean One, but first, Poxwalkers versus Plague Walkers from Immaterium God. Poxwalkers are the regular shaft units of the Death Guard.
They are pretty cool. They have infected limbs, some weaponry, freaking jumpsuits. They are dead or dying working class heroes.
Yeah, pretty much. Design-wise, Lucas, I think this is brilliant.
Yeah.
Super clean, it's not a gazillion details, nice silhouette. It comes in one piece. You don't even have to build it. I think this is pretty awesome when you're building an army. I think design-wise, obviously it matters which Plague Bearer you hold. Some of them look better than the others. I think this one, the first one we have, I think this is like a 9 for me. Just for like a shaft unit, you have to take that into account. This other one, I think it's more like a 7.
So let's even it out on like 8.
Yeah, let's give the kit an 8. When it comes to sculpting, Games Workshop with these types of kits have a tendency of just being the best. I don't know what to say.
I mean, for me, they still have some of the unnecessary textures.
Not on this one. This one is really, really nice.
But you have like, here you can see there's like holes where you don't really need
I
them.
like it.
Yeah, but it also makes it a bit annoying to paint. And like for the intestines, like...
Yeah, they're a bit small.
And it's like, it's maggots instead of intestines. So instead of having like smooth surfaces, you have these like riffled effects.
Yeah. I think this one would be like a 9. I think this one would be like a 7. So I'm probably gonna give it, like, for being, again, shaft units, like an 8.
I'm gonna probably say, considering it's shaft units, I'm probably gonna give it like a 7. Because it is annoying to paint around these type of details when it's a lot of them.
Price, Lucas. 10 minis for 37 bucks. Every unit box should be 37
Now they should be 35.
But for being a plastic kit, unique minis, looking beautiful, I think it's nice.
I do have to say though, these ones are not as like reposable. I'm gonna give it a 7.
We now have to counter this with the Plague Walkers from Immaterium God. So design-wise, I think from the Immaterium God minis we've had, these are the best ones.
These are really cool.
They still have the problem with being a little bit too like over-textured. The legs are a little bit too thin. Yeah. I also think the blades that they design, the sharp edge needs to be slightly bigger, slightly longer.
The helmets, they feel really unique.
Yeah.
Like you get that this can perfectly play as a Poxwalker.
Yeah.
But it's really unique.
Yeah. It's like a Death Corps of Krieg meets Plague Walkers. I think it's pretty good. It's like a 7 for me.
I'm probably leaning towards a 7 as well.
When it comes to the skull, we still have the issue of them being a bit over-designed, and some of the details are a little bit too small, like the teeth are a little bit too small.
Fingers are a bit too, like the scale is a bit...
Yeah, the legs are a bit too thin, the feet are a little bit too small. There are so small changes that would like bring them up 2 levels. It's like a straight down the middle for me. It's not bad, but it's not great either, so I will give it a 5.
I'm gonna give it a 5 as well. But then it comes down to maybe the most important thing, the price.
You get 3 different minis for $6. And then you have to repeat. A lot of them will look very alike.
Yeah, so what you can do is you can mirror them.
Yeah.
And then you have 6 different ones.
Yeah.
But that's still only 6.
$6 though, $2 per mini. I think that's a fair price. It is not quite as good as the previous one where you had like interchangeable parts and all of that kind of stuff. But that's also made some of these designs maybe more unique. I would give the price probably a 6, I would say.
I would probably give it a 6 as well. I agree with you.
So the Plague Walkers are probably our favorites from Immaterium God, but they're also up against a tough opponent, the Poxwalkers. And the winner is...
Okay, Emil.
It's time for the
grand
grandest,
reveal.
Great Unclean One.
This is the most important round ever.
These lumbering monstrosities is one of my favorites, again, of the Nurgle range, when we don't include the Death Guard stuff. I think the Great Unclean Ones are fantastic. A multi-part kit that you can build into 3 different versions. Unfortunately, you can't build all 3, you can only build one of them.
I gotta give it, this is a beautiful lump.
But that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
It's a lump. Design, what's your opinion?
Even though I freaking love them,
yeah,
I'm gonna give this a 5.
A 5?
Yeah.
I think the Great Unclean One is an 8 for me. It's one of my favorite Nurgle minis.
Yeah, sure, it's really beautiful, but it's also really boring in my opinion. I love it and I hate it.
You are entitled to your opinion. It doesn't mean your opinion is right.
There's too much shit going on.
You think?
There's fucking...
Considering the size of
Look at all the freaking unnecessary folds.
Yeah, but
sells.
if you have time to paint it, it will be so beautiful.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I never have the time because I'm always working.
But I still think you have a lot of like open areas as well to do like fun, cool things. I like the teeth. They're like perfectly sized. All 3 faces. The guts are beautiful.
You know, Emil, the more I'm looking at it, I only like the faces and the hands. And maybe the guts. Yeah. I freaking hate like all the flaps and flops and striations in the freaking...
Yeah, but you're wrong.
I'm gonna give it a 3.
What the fuck?
I just realized I don't think I've looked at these this close and like for this long.
I think the sculpting is like an 8 for me. Okay, I give it a 7. I will give it a 7.
I'm gonna have to retract my old design part. I'm gonna bring my design down to a 6. Because I don't feel like they fit enough with the rest of the line.
No, I agree partially with you, but I think this is fucking stupid. I think you're so wrong.
No, I am so correct.
I think you're so wrong. Price-wise, $168.
For a lump.
I think that is kind of ridiculous.
If they would have included a scenic base, to not just have it flat on the base.
I would have said if they would have included an extra pair of feet, so you could like do different poses on the feet, I would have given it like a 5. But now because it's like, you get different hands and different head and different center of the belly. That's the only thing that differs. I think it's like 4 in terms of bang for buck.
I will agree with you on a 4.
Purulent Demon Throne from Rescale Miniatures. These are the guys that helped us design our own dragon. It's the most beautiful plastic kit I've ever seen, And because we just released it this month, you can grab a plastic dragon that is twice the size of a great Unclean One for only 69 euros. But that price is only available for 12 more days, so go check it out now.
Okay, are we ready for the freaking rescale?
Yeah, we are ready.
Oh
my god, yeah.
This is a great Unclean One.
There are so many things that I love with this mini, but there's also like 2 things that I really dislike about this mini.
Are you stupid?
Yeah, one, the face.
It's so good.
The details like the teeth and the eyes are too small. They need to be a little bit bigger. But you know what the other thing that I hate about it?
No.
It's fucking 3D printed!
Yeah, if only 3D printing was plastic injection molding.
Yeah, because this will be a pain in the ass to paint. And it's a pain in the ass to print because it's so big. And the base you have to split up in 2 to get it on even like a decent sized printer. And the supports weren't great. They were too thin. You need to have like an anchor point when it's this big, which it didn't have. Kind of pulled down the grade a little bit for me. But design-wise, it has so much character. It is beautiful. Everything is beautiful about it. Scenic base is beautiful.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna give it an 8.
I'm gonna give this a 10 out of 10 in design.
You're giving it a 10?
Yeah, I freaking love it.
The throne, beautiful. The texture of the skin, I think is wonderful. The pose, I think, is beautiful. The expression of the face, I think, is beautiful.
The simplicity of the weapon.
The weapon is definitely better than the Games Workshop weapon, even if the Games Workshop weapon is nice. There's one major downside, and that is the face. The rest for me is fantastic. So I'm gonna pull it down to 9. It could have been a 10 if the face was a little bit more worked on.
I'm gonna have to agree with you. The smaller details aren't big enough. So.
Price-wise, Lucas, you asked for 3D printed files to be under $20. This one is $19.95. But it's also by far the biggest mini we printed. Yeah. I'm gonna estimate somewhere around 20 to 40 bucks in terms of resin costs for this one, depending on how expensive resin you buy. Landing the price somewhere between $40 and $60.
By comparison,
yeah,
a quite good price.
It does feel less like janky and prone to break than this one, which I think is positive. Price-wise, again, for 3D print. Like, if this was a plastic kit, they fixed the teeth and the eyes, I would have been willing to pay 200 bucks for this one. And still been like, no, I think it's worth, even if it's not the original Games Workshop one. But now, when it's 3D printed, like a 6 or 7.
I would buy it for $19.95, and then I would have it sit in my downloaded folder for about a year.
Yeah.
Because I realized I'm not printing this shit, because I hate printing. So I will give it a 5 out of 10 in price. Just because I feel like we have to sort of include the fact that it's a 3D print.
And like the hours you have to spend, the difficulty of cleaning it and all that.
Because when it comes to smaller stuff, you can just put it on your printer, like boom, boom.
Yeah.
This one, I know for a fact that we had to split the printing process into like 4 prints.
And the thing is, like, the base is going to break. Now, we didn't print it on our most fancy printers, the Persson. So we had a bit of like a shape problem with the base. It's not the most expensive resin either, which does pull the quality down a little bit. I'm gonna put my grade at a 6. But when we count the total, the final winner for this Games Workshop versus 3D print, the winner is...
Rescale.
Yeah! It's one of those where I love both. I know you didn't like this one, but
yeah, I
get why. Like, the design of this one is nice. If you liked any of the designs in this video, please go check out Support the Small Creators. If you like Games Workshop, go buy their stuff, because they've created fucking Warhammer, and we love Warhammer. If you want to learn to paint like Lucas and I, go check out our paint sets. They're available for sale now. Also, as we mentioned, our dragon, if you want to check out that campaign, buy the paint sets with that maybe. And follow our tutorial to learn to paint awesome stuff like we do. Massive thanks to this week's sponsor, Squarespace. And of course, our top donors. You guys are fucking legends. And patrons, these ones as well.